It's daily time. Part 2 of this LiquidTaeJa TvZ daily, where in part 1 we looked a lot at the basic concepts of structuring an opening that flows well with your late game your mid and late game strategy. So we saw how the Reapers flowed into the factory very naturally. And then we looked a lot at how there were a number of options to hold off the roaches and lings, but how TaeJa is both defending successfully. He's been able to stay alive against a roach and a ling attack. And also TaeJa has not done anything that's thrown him off his end goal of going Marine Tank Medevac. In particular, I thought that this was so brilliant, getting a single Viking out and getting 4 Hellions out to deal with a Zerg who most likely is very late on his lair or has maybe not even started it yet. So we can see the sort of continued benefit of having these Hellions up. The only thing that was really a big threat was Zerglings. Actually, it's sort of a twofold genius play from TaeJa. On one hand, he says, okay, you've attacked twice, so the only thing... okay, I'm going to try it again. He said, you've attacked twice, so there's no way you can really have a layer up, so drops are going to be effective. However, if you've attacked twice, there's a big threat of you attacking a third time. The only thing you can really be attacking with is lings. So that's why he focused on getting these Hellions up. And we see that benefit playing out right now. Hellions being controlled properly, and he's held off this third attack like no problem. And here's the drop poking in here, about to be able to do, at the very least, some disorganizational damage. Here's the Viking out, killing off Overlords. No way this Viking is going to have any threats, because we've suffered 3 attacks. We know our opponent's lair is nowhere close to done, so we know that a Spire is nowhere close to done. And ta-da! TaeJa has properly identified, alright, I'm pretty safe. I got this hole at the front clogged up with units. I've walled off with depots. So perfect. Here was the swap. This starport was given a reactor to begin going double medevac, and this factory was given a tech lab to now go for tanks. So functionally, everything that has gone on has been guided by this basic concept. What are the buildings of Marine Tank Medevac? 2 engineering bays, we want some factories, we want a reactored starport, we want those barracks with the reactors, stim and combat shield. Here's our 2 engineering bays. Here's our armory for +2. Here's some of the barracks. Here's our factory. Like, everything is clearly guided. It's not just us kind of going, well, what can he do now? And then we try to stop and think of what the best answer is. I mean, TaeJa just knows, well, I'm just going to go tank Marine. That's a very strong composition. But along the way, I'm happy to switch stuff and shuffle stuff around. So we've been seeing a lot of specific clever plays, like, ooh, yeah, Hellions to defend me while I do this drop. But also... alright, I saw the layer going down. This probably means that, you know, it's time for him to start being passive, to start droning up. And indeed, we see 12 drones in production right there. So the delay of tanks also makes sense. We're going to do Marine Medevac pressure as much as possible. We don't need a ton of tanks right now because we're likely not going to be up against a lot of speed banelings right now. Free reign with this dude, Hellions doing a little scouting over there, and continue dropping because, hell, my opponent is very unlikely to be able to deal with drops in a very cost-effective manner. So let's just admire this control. Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah, that was good. Fantastic. God, that's so good by TaeJa. Oh! Now this medevac drop I will almost put in as part of a build order. It's very easy to, there's a lot of build orders that require an attack. You know, like a Terran player who opens Hellions, and you kind of must attack with the Hellions to sort of contain, keep lings back, keep creep spread back, while you go on and do other things. This, though, is not just, okay, when you get your first medevac, go drop. This is a read that TaeJa is doing. He's saying, oh, late layer, I will now do this drop. So this might happen in 10-20% of games. And in this game, it's absolutely correct. And TaeJa's rounding out the rest of all his buildings. Alright, well that's part of what I needed. I really needed those 5 barracks up.
Additional supply depots required.
Vikings and medevacs moving up along this left side, while a basic attack begins to move along the right side. Sort of sweeping out to make sure that there's pressure appropriately applied at all these fronts. And I think most importantly, it's still a low probability that his mutalisks are out right now, so we can move in there, deal some nice drop damage, and run away if it turns out we're wrong. Even if there are mutalisks, we can emergency thrusters to get at the very least a head start and maybe save some dudes. So some good spotting here. That was a little counterattack, not the biggest deal in the world. So this is where, at this point in time, I feel like TaeJa is finally getting back to somewhere normal. And this is always my litmus test for awesome. If I walked in the room right now and looked at this, I would have no sense that anything was amiss. I could come in here, I mean, especially if you do one of these things where gameplay, alright, let's, where's the game timer? Yeah, let's get rid of that. So there's no game timer on right now. Oh, I don't know how anything works, right? Like, there's no game timer. If you walked in right now, you'd be like, oh yeah, it looks pretty normal. Nothing would be amiss. That's how you know when a player really gets it. All these core pieces are here, the 2 engineering bays, the 1 to 2 factories. You know, I might get a second factory right now because I'm realizing, wow, it really doesn't have a lot of tanks. Yeah, okay, well, oops, he missed that upgrade. But other than that, perfect, great. And then if I revealed this, the game timer, then you'd know, oh, some early aggression must have happened, because we're sort of late in the game. But very often, you see these sort of inklings of disorganization. You'll see like 3 barracks with tech lab. You'll sort of think, well, what are those doing there? You don't really need 3 tech lab barracks for marine tank. And maybe that player says, oh, well, roaches were attacking me early, so I got the tech lab so I get some marauders to defend. But, no, not TaeJa. He defended with exactly what he needed, without getting also deviated. So I think that this will, this wraps up most of the first big chunk of what I wanted to talk about, which is the way that TaeJa is holding on, getting these nice reads, and not overreacting to them. Working within the confines of what his build order, or I should say, of what his strategy would dictate is possible. So now what I want to talk about is unit movement. Yeah. Oh, yeah. One last bit about this sort of what do you build next? It's very easy strategically to be like, okay, I go 5 barracks with a factory, and then once I get my 3rd up, I go 3 more barracks and a 2nd factory. But at a very basic level, you can just say, well, we only have 1 tank, so we should probably get that 2nd factory up sooner. Ain't much more complicated than that. And yet, it's still a mistake that tons of people make, because they just say, well, no, when I take my 3rd, that's when I add the barracks on. So I gotta do that before I add my 2nd factory. No, you don't have to do anything like that. So now, from here on out, I just want to appreciate TaeJa's totally awesome build order. Or not his build order, his totally awesome unit positioning. So first he does this sweep out into the middle of the map. He's using medevacs actually to drop the marines here so we can get this vision spotting. These little counterattacks, no big deal. But upon seeing some mutalisks at this left side, TaeJa then prepares to do a drop at the right side. And Yu-Gi-Oh's doing the smart thing, which is to kind of scoop out all the possible Terran vision in these sorts of circumstances. Yu-Gi-Oh even pinches TaeJa off at a really nice angle. But of course, we see the army here, so we position ourselves for an attack up the right side. And this moment is such a sexy, instance of TaeJa's basic strategy, which is to deny this base, to deny this base, and not to really worry about these three. Almost just say, yeah, Zerg, you get those. No problem. TaeJa didn't even see that there was an expansion here, and yet in the midst of this attack, he went, okay, cool, I'm going to go check for that right away. If there is a base here, it would be completely dead, but fortunately there were just some overlords, and then he runs away. Okay, Mutalisks over here, so this army sweeping up to this side. And what is the big thing that TaeJa wants to see? There's an expo here, wants to kill that off. Remember what I was saying earlier? If you sense you're low on tanks, it's fine to get Factory 2 before Barracks 6, 7, 8. So this single Marine popping up. Well, this is kind of a frustrating moment because we have some Marines there to be able to defend. But TaeJa now has this opportunity to just go up here and whack at this army and take it down. Whack at this expansion, take it down. There's these dicey judgment calls that must be made. So a couple Marines go this way. These Marines pull back to make sure that, you know, this counterattack is appropriately dealt with. But now we have to get a plan of attack of how to go for this. Marines being rallied back into the main. This vision is clearly demonstrates that there's no real counterattacks. So TaeJa does a couple of things. One is rally back here, obvious. The other is send this army up there, obvious. But the third thing that might not be so obvious is the fact that all these units are clustered here with these specific depots lifted up and the tank actually parked here to block a counterattack into here or to deal with a Zergling attack down there. This is kind of a not so amazing position in the main to deal with, but look at TaeJa preemptively sieging up this tank. Sieging these tanks quite low. Not even sending all the units up, just a swift snap-off. Why are these units here? Multiple reasons. One, to support the tanks against Mutalisks, but more importantly, the second one, these can instantly be stemmed and retreated if there's some counterattack that sneaks in there. We want to kill these off, but we're not actually looking to do a huge push. So this is a reassuring moment where we're like, oh, thank God, I see the Mutalisks here. Alright, what's the next big step? Heading home and regrouping. Oh, yeah. So there's some nice scans to do that sort of leading and picking off. And this is just such an amazing tactical move. Now, here's, I think, where I almost want to say the analysis can get too tricky, and it doesn't need to be. Here's the overly complicated analysis, right? Okay, so a drop is going to come here to reposition some units as we sweep along to this side. And we're going to pull these units back to sort of cut back like a V. In fact, we're just going to see this V all game long. Alright, nice. So, blah, blah, blah. You can maybe talk about having seen exactly these units there so you know that the Mutalisks are in the wrong position. All that crap. Way too complicated. Way too complicated. It's a really sexy move, but it's really basic. I'm going to do a drop here, so that way I can set up an attack to try to shut down this expansion. Does TaeJa know this expansion is here? No. But TaeJa's whole goal is kill this base, kill this base. Kill this base, kill this base. That's all he really wants to do the entire game. So he's going to drop here as a way to help support this set of units for this attack. So look at this. Here's the regroup. Some units appear. Well, there's one Mutalisk.
Base is under attack.
And the move out up to the top side. Ideally, there would be a bunch of ling, baneling, or Mutalisks there. This is actually the worst position that you could be in as TaeJa with these Mutalisks in the main. And that's one of the reasons why Yu-Gi-Oh! Is good, right? He is putting TaeJa in the worst possible position. But still, TaeJa shan't forget his goal. Kill off these bases. Tanks siege back pretty dang far. A scan along this left flank to see if it's coverable with Marines. And these Marines from TaeJa just get rallied back to try to protect that. So, alright. We've killed off this base. Next goal is going to be to do a sweep back there. I highly doubt that an expansion is done and up, but that's certainly TaeJa's goal. But right now what TaeJa's going to do is he's just going to pull everything back. I mean, back home in the base, we have just Marines and tanks and upgrades and all that sort of good stuff going out. We have an expansion coming up. Why? Because we're running dry in the main, and we can only go 3 base for so long. So, okay, yet another drop. Remember this drop at the backside? It was covered because all of TaeJa's units were here, so he loaded some up and then just went dip over there. Had a protected journey from here to here. This medevac too has a protected journey. He's going to cut over here and join up. And there's vision throughout all that entire area. So it's covered. Rest of the units from TaeJa pull back home. Why? Because it's unlikely that there's really any expansion to attack. I think that it's way easy to convince yourself that this attack was good and that you need to go up and kill that, but I mean, yeah, I think it's really telling that TaeJa hasn't even scouted this. He doesn't even care. His army was here and he did not take the poke up because the goal is to kill off this base and then to eventually be a 4-base Terran versus a 3-base Zerg. That's a really common strategy on these thin maps like Ohana or on Peaks of Baekdu if you play Brood War. Alright, cool. Remember that medevac drop that I was pointing to at some point in the distant past? It never coalesced into anything. TaeJa pulled it back here and then kind of saw what was going on with this other drop and was like, eh, and pulled back. So, okay, TaeJa is going to pull back to this location and then he's just going to move up here. And this attack doesn't even really need a drop to help reinforce it because all the Mutalisks are there. Generally what you don't want is for the Mutalisk to be in a really good position before the attack, or the ground guys to be in a really good position. But we can just see that. So, okay, what's the next step? Well, we saw the Mutalisks over here, and we completed this attack over here. This drop is safe, is covered. There's a number of ways to cover medevacs. We've seen 3 in the last few minutes. I'm actually going to rewind and point out all 3 of them, assuming that I can pull this off properly. Alright, cool. I'm going to times 8 it so we can see 3 different ways in which these were protected. Alright, so here's the first way to protect a medevac, to just have your damn units there.
Base is under attack.
Come on. Oh, I did rewind too much. I'm the worst. I'm so bad at my job. Medevac drop covered because all the units... Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Huh. StarCraft! No! No! StarCraft is frozen. Oh no. Oh my god. Alright, I gotta control it, delete my StarCraft. I just wanted to show you the 3 ways. Guys, my StarCraft crashed. I have to close it. I don't want it to crash. I really don't. There it is. Okay. It's gone. It's not with us any longer. It's okay. You know what? I'll start it back up in the break. Where we will, in fact, get the chance to see these 3 types of drop coverage. You always have to have a drop covered. You can't just be like, burn and go! That's kind of a bad plan. So you can. The first way that we saw it is the entire army of TaeJa was there. So he just lifted up and he sort of walked from his army to the drop point. The second one was by having vision. To see that the path where your medevac's going to head is completely clear. And the third one, and is, I think, far and away the most important one, is seeing that his Mutalisks are out of position. If you see mutas over here, you just drop over there. Because even if lings and banelings greet that medevac, you then know the lings and banelings are here dealing with this drop. That means my tank, Marine army can move up aggressively and then siege up, and the banelings will not be able to invade. If you don't know where the ling banelings are, you have to be really careful and cautious because you have to have the tanks sieged up before the banelings roll in. So the medevacs are very good, interestingly, for getting baneling zergling in the wrong spot. And you can only really do that if you see the mutalisks out of position. So when we come back from the break, we're going to finish this game up. Yeah! These breaks! Yeah!